somewhere beneath collapsing cities, buried under oceans, hidden inside radioactive wastelands and forgotten deserts, lie billions of dollars worth of treasures humanity simply walked away from. Entire luxury cities were left empty overnight, giant ships filled with priceless cargo swallowed by the sea. Advanced machines that once represented the future of mankind are now rusting in silence where no one dares to go. But the most shocking part isn't their value. It's the mystery behind why they were abandoned in the first place. Wars, disasters, greed, panic, and unexplained events forced people to leave behind fortunes most of us can't even imagine. And even today, many of these lost places remain untouched, frozen in time like ghosts of a vanished world. From cursed ghost towns to billion-dollar ruins hidden from civilization, these are the most expensive things humans ever left behind, and the stories become more unbelievable with every discovery. Number 16, Centralia.
The town was a victim of some kind of volcanic activity. There's cracks visible, there's steam coming up out of the ground. It seems like some kind of a volcanic wasteland.
What would you do if the ground beneath your home was slowly burning? For the residents of Centralia, that nightmare became reality. Nestled in the coal-rich hills of Pennsylvania, Centralia was once a quiet mining town where generations of families built their lives. It wasn't famous, it wasn't wealthy, but it was home. Children played in its streets, businesses served the local community, and life moved at a steady pace. Then, in 1962, a fire broke out in a local landfill. Under normal circumstances, it would have been a minor incident. Instead, the flames reached abandoned coal seams beneath the town and ignited something far more dangerous. Deep underground, a fire began spreading through vast deposits of coal, and it never stopped. Years passed, but the fire continued burning beneath Centralia. Residents started noticing unsettling changes. Smoke drifted from cracks in the ground. Sections of road became dangerously hot. Toxic gases escaped from beneath the surface. In some areas, the earth itself began to collapse. The town was slowly becoming unlivable. Engineers and officials attempted various methods to extinguish the underground fire, but none succeeded. The blaze had spread too far and too deep. Eventually, authorities concluded that the safest solution was not to stop the fire, but to move the people. Families were bought out and relocated. Homes were demolished. Businesses closed forever. One by one, residents left the town where they had spent their entire lives. Today, Centralia is almost empty. Most of its buildings are gone, but beneath the quiet landscape, the fire still burns. More than 60 years after it began, the underground blaze continues consuming coal far below the surface. Experts believe it could continue burning for many decades to come. What makes Centralia so extraordinary is that an entire town was abandoned not because of a disaster that happened in a single day, but because of one that never ended. Millions of dollars in homes, roads, utilities, and businesses were left behind because the ground itself could no longer be trusted. Centralia remains one of the strangest places in America, a town defeated not by what people could see, but by a fire hidden beneath their feet. Number 15, Nicosia International Airport.
This became the center of the buffer zone, and the airport closed, and it must be hard for the islanders to see this from a distance. What was once the pride of Cyprus.
Airports are built to connect people with the world. This one became completely cut off from it. Before 1974, Nicosia International Airport was the busiest and most important airport in Cyprus. Thousands of passengers pass through its terminals every year, making it a vital gateway between the island and the rest of the world. Everything seemed normal, until conflict suddenly changed the airport's fate. During the Cyprus crisis of 1974, the airport found itself caught in the middle of military operations. Flights stopped, passengers disappeared, and the facility was forced to shut down. What was expected to be a temporary closure eventually became permanent, and then time stood still. Unlike most abandoned airports that are demolished or rebuilt, Nicosia was simply left behind. Airliners remained where they had been parked. Terminal buildings sat empty. Check-in counters, waiting areas, luggage equipment, and airport infrastructure were left untouched for decades. Inside, it felt as though the airport had been frozen in a single moment. Dust settled across abandoned furniture. Old signs still pointed travelers toward gates that would never see another departure. Broken windows allowed nature to slowly creep inside. What was once a modern transportation hub became a silent monument to a conflict that reshaped an entire nation. What makes Nicosia International Airport so remarkable is the scale of what was abandoned. Airports represent enormous investments: runways, aircraft facilities, terminals, communication systems, and support infrastructure worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Yet all of it was left behind because circumstances made reopening impossible. Today, the airport remains one of the world's most unusual abandoned locations. Sitting inside a United Nations-controlled buffer zone, much of the facility has remained largely untouched for decades. It's a rare place where the modern world seems to have paused, preserving a snapshot of 1974 for future generations. While planes continue flying across the skies above Cyprus, the airport that once connected the island to the world remains silent, a forgotten gateway trapped in time. Number 14. Kolmanskop. Imagine finding so many diamonds that you decide to build a luxury town in one of the harshest deserts on Earth. That is exactly what happened in the early 1900s, when diamonds were discovered near what is now Kolmanskop. Almost overnight, prospectors, miners, and investors rushed into the region hoping to make their fortunes. The area quickly became one of the richest diamond-producing locations in the world. As wealth poured in, a remarkable town emerged from the desert sands. Elegant European-style homes were constructed. There were schools, hospitals, a theater, shops, and even recreational facilities. For a remote settlement surrounded by endless dunes, Kolmanskop offered a surprisingly luxurious lifestyle. For years, the town thrived. Diamonds were so plentiful that stories spread about gems being found lying on the ground. The mining industry generated enormous profits, turning the settlement into a symbol of prosperity and opportunity. But the boom didn't last forever. As the richest diamond deposits became depleted, miners began searching elsewhere. When larger and more profitable diamond fields were discovered farther south, companies shifted their operations. Jobs disappeared, businesses closed, and families gradually moved away in search of new opportunities. By the middle of the 20th century, the town had been almost completely abandoned. Today, Kolmanskop looks like something from another world. Sand drifts through broken windows and piles up inside once beautiful homes. Entire rooms are filled with dunes. Hallways that once echoed with conversation now sit silent beneath layers of desert sand. What makes Kolmanskop so fascinating is that it wasn't destroyed by war, disaster, or disease. It was abandoned because the wealth that built it moved somewhere else. The buildings remained, the streets remained, but the reason for the town's existence disappeared. More than half a century later, the desert continues its slow takeover. Every year, a little more sand enters the empty structures, gradually reclaiming a city that was once built on one of the most valuable resources on Earth. It's a powerful reminder that even fortunes made from diamonds can eventually fade into dust. Number 13. Plymouth, Montserrat. It's rare for a country to lose its capital city. It's even rarer for that city to still exist beneath layers of ash and volcanic debris. On the Caribbean island of Montserrat stood the bustling city of Plymouth. As the capital of Montserrat, it was the island's political, economic, and cultural heart. Government offices, schools, businesses, hotels, and family homes filled its streets, making it the most important city on the island. For generations, life in Plymouth seemed peaceful. Then, in 1995, the nearby Soufriere Hills volcano awakened after centuries of dormancy. At first, the eruptions appeared manageable, but as volcanic activity intensified, ash clouds darkened the sky and dangerous flows of hot gas and debris began threatening nearby communities. Residents watched as the situation grew worse. Many families packed their belongings and evacuated, believing they would eventually return. Businesses closed their doors. Government operations were relocated. One by one, people left behind the city they had always called home. But the volcano wasn't finished. Over the following years, repeated eruptions buried large sections of Plymouth beneath thick layers of ash, mud, and volcanic material. Buildings disappeared, roads vanished, entire neighborhoods were swallowed by the landscape. What had once been a thriving capital city became uninhabitable. Today, much of Plymouth remains abandoned beneath the volcanic deposits. In some places, only rooftops and the upper sections of buildings are visible, emerging like ghosts from the ash. Hidden beneath the debris are homes, businesses, vehicles, public buildings, and infrastructure worth hundreds of millions of dollars. What makes Plymouth so extraordinary is that this isn't an ancient city lost thousands of years ago. This happened in modern times. People who once lived there are still alive today, remembering the streets, shops, and neighborhoods that now lie buried beneath volcanic rock. Plymouth remains one of the only modern capital cities in the world to be permanently abandoned because of a volcanic eruption. It stands as a powerful reminder that even in the modern age, nature can erase an entire city and leave behind a silent monument to what once existed there. Number 12. Hashima Island. Most cities disappear because of war, disaster, or disease. Hashima Island was abandoned for a much stranger reason. The world no longer needed what it had. Sitting alone in the waters off Japan's coast, Hashima Island was once one of the most valuable pieces of land in the country. Beneath this small island lay vast coal reserves, and for decades they fueled Japan's rapid industrial growth. As money poured in, the island transformed into a crowded concrete city in the middle of the ocean. Apartment buildings rose higher and higher. Schools, hospitals, shops, restaurants, and entertainment centers were built wherever space could be found. Thousands of workers and their families called the island home. At its peak, Hashima was one of the most densely populated places on Earth, with every corner packed with life and activity. Then everything changed. By the 1970s, oil had replaced coal as the world's preferred fuel source. The mines that had made Hashima rich were no longer profitable. One by one, jobs disappeared. Families began leaving, businesses closed, and in 1974, the mine officially shut down. Almost overnight, the island was emptied. Today, the city still stands, but the people are gone. Empty apartment blocks stare out across the sea. Schoolrooms sit silent. Staircases lead to rooms that haven't welcomed a resident in decades. The sound of children playing and workers heading to the mines has been replaced by nothing but wind and crashing waves. What makes Hashima so haunting is that an entire modern city was left behind. Buildings, roads, public facilities, industrial equipment, and countless personal belongings remained exactly where they were when the last residents departed. It wasn't destroyed, it wasn't buried, it was simply abandoned. Nearly 50 years later, the island remains a frozen reminder of how quickly prosperity can disappear. Once one of Japan's busiest communities, Hashima is now a silent concrete ghost city, slowly being reclaimed by the sea that surrounds it. Number 11. The Aral Sea Ship Graveyard. It's hard to imagine abandoning a ship in the middle of a desert, but that's exactly what happened here. Just a few decades ago, the Aral Sea was one of the largest lakes on Earth, stretching across parts of Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. Its waters supported thriving fishing communities, busy ports, and thousands of jobs. Massive fishing vessels crossed its waters every day, supplying millions of tons of fish to the Soviet Union. Then, one of the greatest environmental disasters in modern history began. During the 1960s, rivers feeding the Aral Sea were diverted to support large-scale agricultural projects. Over time, less and less water reached the lake. Year after year, the shoreline retreated farther into the distance. What had once been a vast body of water slowly began to vanish. The fishing industry collapsed. Ports became useless. Communities that depended on the sea lost their livelihoods. As the water disappeared, hundreds of ships and fishing boats were left stranded where they sat. Today, many of those vessels remain scattered across a barren desert landscape. Rusting hulls rest on dry sand under the scorching sun, miles away from the nearest water. Looking at them, it's almost impossible to believe they once floated across one of the world's largest inland seas. What makes this place so extraordinary is the scale of what was lost. Entire fishing fleets, ports, processing facilities, and local economies worth billions of dollars became useless as the sea vanished. Towns that once bustled with activity were transformed into isolated settlements surrounded by dust and abandoned machinery. Unlike many places on this list, the Aral Sea wasn't destroyed by war or a sudden disaster. It disappeared gradually, year by year, until there was almost nothing left to save. Today, the ship graveyards of the Aral Sea stand as one of the most surreal sights on Earth. A place where expensive vessels were not abandoned because people left the sea, but because the sea itself left them behind. Number 10. Buran Space Shuttle. Building a spacecraft is one of the most expensive things a nation can do. Abandoning one is almost unthinkable. During the Cold War, the Soviet Union invested enormous resources into creating its answer to the American space shuttle program. The result was the Buran, one of the most advanced spacecraft ever built at the time. Years of research, cutting-edge technology, and billions of dollars went into the project. The shuttle successfully completed its first and only space mission in 1988. Unlike many spacecraft of its era, Buran was capable of flying and landing automatically without a crew on board. A remarkable technological achievement. It seemed like the beginning of a new era. But history had other plans. Just a few years later, the Soviet Union collapsed. Funding disappeared, priorities changed, and the ambitious space program was suddenly left without support. The spacecraft that had cost billions to design and build no longer had a future. Instead of becoming a symbol of Soviet space exploration, Buran was quietly abandoned. For years, the shuttle sat inside a massive hangar at the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. Dust gathered on its surface. Equipment around it slowly deteriorated. One of the most advanced machines ever created was left sitting in silence, forgotten by much of the world. What makes the story so remarkable is that Buran wasn't abandoned because it failed. It worked. It completed its mission successfully. The project ended because the country that created it no longer existed. Today, the remaining Buran spacecraft and related equipment stand as relics of a vanished superpower. Together, they represent billions of dollars in technology, engineering, and human effort that were ultimately left behind. Few abandoned objects tell a story quite as dramatic. A machine built to explore space, grounded forever by events on Earth. Number 9. Varosha. Most abandoned places lose their people slowly. Varosha lost almost everyone in a matter of days. Located on the eastern coast of Cyprus, Varosha was once one of the most glamorous vacation destinations in the world. During its golden years, the beachfront district was packed with luxury hotels, high-end restaurants, shopping centers, and pristine beaches that attracted visitors from across Europe and beyond. At its peak, it welcomed hundreds of thousands of tourists every year and generated enormous wealth for the island. For residents and business owners, the future looked bright. Then, in 1974, conflict erupted on Cyprus. As tensions escalated, thousands of residents fled the area, believing they would return once the situation stabilized. Homes were left furnished. Hotels were left standing ready for guests. Businesses closed their doors expecting to reopen weeks later. That moment never came. The district was sealed off, and for decades nobody was allowed to return. Time moved on everywhere else, but inside Varosha, it seemed to stand still. Behind locked gates sat an entire city filled with valuable real estate, luxury hotels, apartment buildings, shops, vehicles, and personal belongings. Streets that once echoed with tourists became empty. Hotel rooms remained untouched. Storefronts slowly faded beneath layers of dust and decay. What makes Varosha so fascinating is that nothing catastrophic destroyed it. No earthquake leveled the buildings. No volcanic eruption buried the city. The infrastructure remained standing. The wealth remained there. The people were simply gone. As the years passed, nature slowly reclaimed the district. Trees pushed through cracked roads. Vines climbed abandoned hotels. Birds and wildlife moved into spaces once occupied by thousands of visitors. Today, Varosha remains one of the world's most extraordinary ghost cities. Worth billions of dollars at its peak, it serves as a haunting reminder that sometimes a city doesn't need to be destroyed to be lost. Sometimes all it takes is for the people to leave and never come back. Number 8. Mir Mine. Some abandoned places are cities, some are ships. This one is a hole so enormous that it can be seen from space. Located in eastern Siberia, Mir Mine was once one of the richest diamond mines on Earth. When geologists discovered diamonds here in the 1950s, it triggered a mining operation that would generate billions of dollars over the following decades. The conditions were brutal. Winter temperatures regularly dropped below -40 degrees Celsius, and workers had to battle some of the harshest weather on the planet. Despite the challenges, the rewards were enormous. The mine produced millions of carats of diamonds and became one of the Soviet Union's most valuable industrial assets. As mining expanded, the pit grew larger and larger. Eventually, it reached a depth of more than 500 meters and a diameter of over 1 kilometer. The excavation became so massive that helicopters were reportedly advised not to fly directly above it because of unusual air currents created by the gigantic opening. For decades, the mine generated incredible wealth, but extracting diamonds from such depths became increasingly difficult and expensive. As operations changed and resources became harder to reach, large-scale mining activities eventually came to an end. What remained behind was astonishing: a colossal crater carved into the earth, surrounded by industrial infrastructure, machinery, and facilities that had once supported one of the world's most productive diamond operations. The site represented decades of investment and billions of dollars in resources, equipment, and development. Today, standing at the edge of Mir Mine feels almost unreal. The vast spiral roads winding down into the darkness make the mine look less like a human construction and more like a giant scar on the landscape. It serves as a reminder of humanity's relentless pursuit of valuable resources. For decades, this massive pit helped fuel a diamond empire. Now, much of what remains is a silent monument to one of the most ambitious mining projects ever undertaken, a place where unimaginable wealth was pulled from the ground, leaving behind one of the largest man-made holes on Earth. Number 7. Chernobyl. Most abandoned places become empty slowly. People move away, businesses close, and over time a town fades into history. But Chernobyl was different. Here, life didn't fade away. It stopped almost instantly. In April 1986, a reactor at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant suffered a catastrophic explosion, triggering the worst nuclear accident in history. Just a short distance away, the city of Pripyat carried on as normal. Children played outside, workers finished their shifts, and families went about their daily routines, unaware that everything was about to change. Within hours, invisible radiation began spreading across the region. The government eventually ordered a full evacuation, and thousands of residents boarded buses with only a few personal belongings. They were told the evacuation would be temporary. Many left food on their tables, clothes in their closets, and treasured possessions in their homes, expecting to return soon. They never did. Today, Pripyat remains one of the eeriest places on Earth. Apartment blocks stand empty. Schools are filled with dusty textbooks. Hospitals, shops, and public buildings sit abandoned exactly where they were left decades ago. Trees now grow through cracked roads, and nature has slowly taken back what was once a thriving city. What was abandoned here wasn't just property. It was an entire way of life. Homes, vehicles, businesses, public infrastructure, and countless personal belongings worth billions of dollars were left behind because the area had become too dangerous to inhabit. Nearly 40 years later, Chernobyl serves as a haunting reminder of how quickly everything can change. One day it was a modern, growing community. The next, it became a silent monument to one of humanity's greatest technological disasters, frozen forever in the moment its future disappeared. Number 6. The Titanic. More than a century ago, the most luxurious ship ever built set out on its maiden voyage. It was called the RMS Titanic, and many believed it was practically unsinkable. On board were some of the wealthiest people in the world, traveling with expensive jewelry, rare artwork, gold, cash, and priceless personal belongings. But on the night of April 14, 1912, everything changed. After striking an iceberg in the North Atlantic Ocean, the Titanic began taking on water. As panic spread through the ship, passengers were forced to leave behind nearly everything they owned. Within hours, the massive liner disappeared beneath the waves, taking more than 1,500 lives and an unimaginable amount of wealth with it. For decades, the ship's final resting place remained one of history's greatest mysteries. Then, in 1985, explorers finally discovered the wreck nearly 13,000 feet below the ocean's surface. What they found was astonishing. The ship was still there, broken into pieces but remarkably recognizable, surrounded by thousands of artifacts preserved in the darkness of the deep sea. Over the years, explorers have recovered items ranging from jewelry and watches to dishes, shoes, luggage, and personal letters. Yet most of the Titanic remains exactly where it sank. Deep inside the wreck and scattered across the ocean floor are countless artifacts and valuables that may never be recovered. What makes the Titanic unique is that it wasn't just a ship that was lost. It was an entire floating world. Luxury suites, grand staircases, elegant dining rooms, and the possessions of over 2,000 passengers vanished beneath the Atlantic in a single night. More than 100 years later, the Titanic continues to capture the world's imagination. Resting in complete darkness nearly 4 kilometers beneath the ocean, it remains one of the most expensive and haunting things humanity has ever left behind. A time capsule from a tragedy that the world still remembers today. Number 5. Dubai's abandoned supercars. When people think of abandoned places, they usually imagine old towns or forgotten buildings. Few imagine parking lots filled with luxury cars worth millions of dollars. Yet that's exactly what happened in parts of Dubai. Over the years, stories and photographs emerged showing high-end vehicles sitting abandoned in parking garages, airport lots, and storage facilities. Among them were Ferraris, Lamborghinis, Bentleys, Porsches, and other exotic supercars that most people only dream of owning. The reason was surprisingly simple. During periods of financial hardship, particularly after major economic downturns, some expatriates who had accumulated significant debts reportedly left the country abruptly. In certain cases, expensive vehicles were left behind because owners could no longer keep up with payments or chose not to take the cars with them. As a result, luxury automobiles worth hundreds of thousands of dollars each were sometimes found sitting untouched for months or even years. Dust covered once pristine paintwork, batteries died, tires deflated. Machines designed to symbolize wealth and success slowly deteriorated under the desert climate. What makes this story so unusual is the contrast. These weren't ancient artifacts or forgotten relics from a distant era. They were modern supercars packed with cutting-edge technology and extraordinary engineering. Many were worth more than the average house. While not every story surrounding Dubai's abandoned cars is as dramatic as internet legends suggest, the phenomenon became famous because it represented something rarely seen elsewhere: people walking away from fortunes on wheels. Today, abandoned luxury vehicles continue to capture public fascination. They serve as a reminder that wealth can disappear as quickly as it appears, and that even some of the world's most expensive possessions can end up forgotten. In a city known for luxury and ambition, these abandoned supercars tell a different story, one where dreams of success were left parked and never came back. Number 4. The SS America. Most ships are carefully dismantled when their service ends. This one was simply abandoned to the ocean. When the SS America was launched in 1939, it represented the height of American engineering and luxury. Designed to carry thousands of passengers across the Atlantic, the ship became famous for its elegant interiors, grand dining rooms, and impressive size. For decades, the vessel crossed oceans carrying tourists, celebrities, and travelers from around the world. But like many great ships, its glory days eventually came to an end. As air travel became faster and more popular, ocean liners struggled to compete. The SS America changed owners multiple times and was given new names as attempts were made to keep the aging vessel profitable. Then came its final journey. In 1994, while being towed to Asia for conversion into a floating hotel, severe storms struck in the Atlantic Ocean. The tow lines snapped, leaving the massive ship drifting helplessly at sea. Eventually, it ran aground off the coast of Fuerteventura in Spain's Canary Islands, and there it stayed. The stranded liner quickly became one of the world's most famous shipwrecks. Waves relentlessly battered the vessel year after year, tearing away sections of the hull and slowly breaking the ship apart. What makes the story so remarkable is that the ship wasn't lost in battle or sunk by a disaster at sea. It simply became too difficult and expensive to save. One of the most luxurious ocean liners ever built was left to the mercy of the Atlantic Ocean. For years, visitors could see the rusting remains standing defiantly against the waves. Even as the sea gradually destroyed it, the wreck remained a powerful reminder of an era when crossing an ocean aboard a luxury liner was considered one of the greatest travel experiences in the world. Today, much of the ship has been reclaimed by the ocean, but its story survives. Once worth millions of dollars and admired around the globe, the SS America became something few could have imagined, a forgotten giant slowly erased by the sea it once conquered. Number 3. Fordlandia. What happens when one of the richest and most powerful businessmen in the world decides to build an entire city in the middle of the Amazon rainforest? The answer is Fordlandia. In 1928, Henry Ford had a vision that seemed unstoppable. The founder of Ford Motor Company wanted complete control over the rubber needed for his growing automobile empire. Instead of relying on foreign suppliers, he purchased a huge area of land deep in the Brazilian rainforest and set out to create a self-sufficient industrial city from scratch. The project was unlike anything the world had ever seen. Out of the jungle rose a modern town complete with homes, schools, hospitals, factories, roads, power stations, and water systems. Thousands of workers were brought in, and millions of dollars were invested. Ford believed he wasn't just building a rubber plantation, he was building the future. For a moment, it looked like he might succeed, but the rainforest had other plans. The tropical environment proved far more challenging than anyone expected. Rubber trees became vulnerable to disease and insects. Harvests struggled. The harsh conditions made operations difficult, and tensions grew between management and workers. Despite years of effort and enormous spending, the dream never delivered the results Ford had promised. The losses kept growing. Eventually, the project became impossible to justify. The factories slowed. Workers left. The ambitious city that was supposed to supply rubber for one of the world's largest companies was quietly abandoned. Today, the remains of Fordlandia still stand deep within the Amazon. Empty buildings line silent streets. Water towers overlook neighborhoods with few residents. Factories and warehouses slowly decay beneath the relentless jungle climate. What makes Fordlandia so remarkable is that it wasn't destroyed by war, natural disaster, or economic collapse. It failed despite having immense funding, modern technology, and the backing of one of the most successful businessmen in history. Nearly a century later, the jungle continues reclaiming what humans built. Fordlandia stands as one of the world's greatest abandoned experiments, a city born from a billionaire's dream and ultimately left behind when reality proved stronger than ambition. Number 2. Ordos Kangbashi. Imagine arriving in a city filled with skyscrapers, luxury apartments, museums, parks, and 6-lane roads, and finding almost nobody there. That was the strange reality of Kangbashi district. In the early 2000s, fueled by the region's booming coal industry, planners envisioned a futuristic city that would house hundreds of thousands of people. Money poured into the project. Massive residential complexes rose from the landscape. Modern government buildings, cultural centers, shopping districts, and public squares were constructed at an astonishing pace. The city looked ready for a population explosion, but the residents never arrived. As construction continued, photographs began emerging of empty streets stretching between towering buildings. Apartment blocks stood largely vacant. Huge plazas echoed with silence. At times, the city appeared so empty that visitors described it as a place built for people who hadn't shown up yet. The sight was almost surreal. Everything a modern city needed was already there: electricity, transportation, schools, parks, and thousands of homes. Yet many neighborhoods remained unusually quiet. Billions of dollars had been invested into creating a city that seemed years ahead of its demand. Unlike most abandoned places on this list, Kangbashi wasn't destroyed by war, disaster, or economic collapse. Nothing had gone catastrophically wrong. The city was simply built faster than population growth could keep up. This earned it a nickname heard around the world: the Ghost City. For years, it became one of the most famous examples of large-scale urban development, symbolizing both extraordinary ambition and the risks of planning too far ahead. Today, the district is far more populated than during its most famous period, but its story remains remarkable. Few places on Earth have ever seen such enormous wealth invested into a city that spent years waiting for the people it was designed to serve. Kangbashi stands as a unique reminder that even billions of dollars, cutting-edge infrastructure, and grand visions cannot instantly create a thriving city. Sometimes, the buildings arrive long before the people do. Number 1. The Sanzhi UFO houses. It looks like a scene from a science fiction movie. Rows of strange, pod-shaped buildings stand abandoned, their futuristic designs making them appear more suited to another planet than Earth. Yet these unusual structures were very real. Located near New Taipei City, the Sanzhi UFO houses were part of an ambitious project launched in the late 1970s. Developers planned to create a luxury resort and vacation community unlike anything else in Asia. The futuristic homes were designed to attract wealthy buyers looking for a glimpse of the future. The vision was bold. Brightly colored circular houses were constructed along the coastline. Advertisements promised an exclusive lifestyle, modern design, and spectacular ocean views. Millions of dollars were invested into turning the dream into reality, but something went wrong. Financial difficulties, construction problems, and a series of setbacks slowed progress. As costs increased and investors pulled back, the project struggled to move forward. Eventually, work stopped altogether. The futuristic neighborhood was never completed. No families moved in, no vacationers arrived. The homes sat empty almost from the moment they were built. As years passed, the abandoned structures gained an almost mythical reputation. Their unusual appearance inspired rumors, urban legends, and endless speculation. Photographers and explorers traveled from around the world to see the strange settlement that looked decades ahead of its time, but never had the chance to succeed. What made the site so fascinating was the contrast between its futuristic vision and its abandoned reality. Millions of dollars had been spent creating a community designed for the future, yet it became a ghost town before it truly existed. For years, the UFO houses stood as one of the world's strangest abandoned developments. Empty windows stared out toward the ocean while weather and time slowly took their toll on the colorful structures. Although the complex was eventually demolished, its story lives on as one of the most unusual examples of a costly dream that never became reality. A city of the future that was abandoned before its future could begin. That's a wrap. Which abandoned place surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more incredible stories from around the world. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.